Hey guys, it's Brett with another Untech video. For those of you guys who are first tuning in and this is your first video, the goal of these video series is to try to distill down some technical things in recruiting, in data scraping, into really simplistic videos, tutorials even. So if you're not technical by nature, but you still want to kind of get to the end goal without really being a programmer or having an understanding how things work, these videos will help you to do that. So today it's been requested that I create a video to help explain and show some of the functionality from the Excel formulas for Recruiter document that I put together. Now, a quick update and genesis of where this came from. So these are all Excel formulas that I put together out of need. I was working through a document, trying to clean up data, and was trying to figure out how to extract certain information from a cell without going line by line and doing it, kind of doing it manually. And what I started to do is record and write down these formulas and then reference them. And that sort of evolved into the sheet, which I decided to put online to hopefully help someone like myself who's going through the process and is looking for just a quick lookup on some of these formulas. And I also, out of request, put together a document that's actually linked from here. You go to it just from clicking the link on the original document. Both will be in the description here. That shows a little bit of a breakdown on the formulas, the before and afters, how they work and what they do. And this video is going to go into a little bit more in depth on how we'd use them, why we'd use them, and I guess it sort of covers a little of Excel 101. Not really my goal is to explain Excel fundamentals, but you might pick up some just by watching this video. So let's run through a couple of them. So let's say over here we had a list of candidates that we had scraped from a board, and we want to put them into a format so they could be imported. Maybe we want to get their first name, their last name, whatever the case is. So here we have kind of a list of candidates, and the goal is to get their first names over here. Now, we're using this formula over here, which you don't have to know what it means or what it does, just that it works. And essentially, we're using this formula over here, and essentially what it's going to do is go through these and pull out the first name. As you see from the formula bar over here, it's already pulled out the first name of this candidate, Mr. George Washington. And if I wanted to include all these candidates, you can do kind of the drag down, is where you go to the corner here and you wait for that big X to turn into a small black X, drag it down, and it simply just copies the formula all the way down, changing the cell number from A3, A4, so on and so forth. So that's pretty easy way to go about it. Similar in terms of the last name, which is this formula right here. It's actually referencing cell A2, which is your cell over here, and it's looking to pull out the second name. It's doing some other things in the process, but for here, this is what it looks like when you put it in. You see it's already pulled out Washington, and I could do the same trick by dragging it down, and there you go. We now have separated first and last name. Let's go to another example. Let's say you don't have time for any of that. You just want to go from your list of candidates. They all work at the same company, and you figured out they all use the same sort of first dot last email address. So you're going to reference this formula, right? And this is right off the sheet. You can copy it right there. Now, here's where it's going to become a little bit more simplistic for you to figure it out. Now, as you see, this is referencing cell A2. You can see the A2s are all throughout there, but actually what we want is cell A15. So what I'm going to do is simply copy the formula, put it into a Word doc. Here I'm using Notepad. I just want to quickly replace all the A2s with the A15s. You could do a kind of replace function by hitting Control H. Tell it I want A2 to change to A15, replace all, and it just simply updates that. And as you see by here, I have it go to @Microsoft.com. However, you could simply change this to whatever your desired domain name is. Before you paste it, I'm going to copy it and paste it right to where I want it to go. And there you go. It's sort of taken the first name, put a dot in the middle, and added the domain, the @Microsoft.com. Copy it down, And here I go. You see it's showing up value here because, of course, I have nothing in the cell. However, if I had Mr. John Doe over here, it would automatically update and become John Doe, all from using this formula. And you could see how if you had a list of 100 or 1,000 names that all came from the same company, all with a predictive email pattern, meaning they use first dot last, or there are other examples on the sheet that will show you how to get first initial last name, or even last dot first. You could re-engineer the formula to do it. That would certainly take you a lot more time. If you have a bunch of different companies, it gets a little bit more complicated and a little bit more tedious, but still can be done with the right altercations to the formula. So what if we come up with this situation? We have a list of a bunch of candidates, but some of them I have all wacky things going on in their first names. Maybe they have what they want to be referred to. This guy's a doctor, and James Garfield. He really likes to go by Jimmy. Now, this could be amongst a list of hundreds of names, meaning you might have, let's say, you have some that are regular as well. Let's see if we can just copy a few of these down. You have some that are mixed in that are regular, and you want to clean it all up, right? Including you have James in all capitals, and that could look bad if you import it into a database, or this goes directly to a mail merge. So we have this formula here, and it does a lot. If you take a look at it, the proper will actually change it so it's proper casing. It's looking for things like commas, quotation marks, brackets, parentheses to edit those out of the formula. So for here, we're going to do the same thing. We know we want it to pull data from A30. So just going to quickly modify this. You see it's looking to pull data from B12. That's not correct. So we're just going to hit Control H again. Tell it B12 really should be A30. Replace all. And here we go. We got the formula ready to go. We're going to paste it in here. And look at that. It's cleaning the first name, right? And that's what we wanted it to do. But let's see if it gets them all. Let's pull it down. And there you go. It's cleaned them all. It's cleaned everything out of the parentheses on this line, everything on the brackets on this line, the quotations on this line. Plus it changed James and Rutherford, which has a wacky capital TH in the middle of it, into the proper class. So very easy to do. And a lot of these can be combined. That's probably a little bit more technical than this video tutorial is going to get into. So let's go to some more tangible examples. And again, I sort of recreated these by memory of why I looked up and why I curated these examples for my sheet to begin with. So let's look at the top here. This is actually very, very common. A lot of times if you copy a bunch of emails directly from like a BCC or a CCC chain, or maybe a company's Active Directory or something along those lines, you're going to get a name and the email address is going to be encased in brackets, and this time greater than, less than signs. That probably has a more technical term, but I have no idea what it is. So here, here's a bunch of guys, and we have their email addresses, and we're going to use this formula right here, which is essentially looking to pull out anything that falls in between the bracket marks or greater than, less than, equal signs. And as you see, it's already looking to pull from A2, so I simply copy it there and copy it down. Or if it's a whole page, we could just double click it, it'll go down the whole page. And here you go, it just isolated the email addresses. This one, similar, right? This one is just going to look to do it from brackets. So it's really the identical formula. It's been modified to look for brackets, not greater than or less than signs. And it's going to pull that right out of there. Now, we're going to skip over this one for a second. It's a bit out of it, but let's take a look at this one right here. So here's an example. A lot of times if you're scraping data from LinkedIn, you're going to get title at company. And let's say you want to isolate that company name. You want to bring it out into a separate field of its own. You use this formula right here, which I've then translated here by, if you see, changing the B2s to A24s, it's now going to copy everything that falls after the at sign or right here, right? So if you're not looking to say that word at is really another word, you can simply just change that in the quotes here. The formula will work just as well. And, we could simply copy it downwards, and we've now isolated the company name. This is similar in the fact that we're just looking to get everything after the at sign, right? So sorry about that, some technical difficulties here. So here we're looking to get everything after the comma, right? So pretty simple. We want to pull everything that happens after that, and essentially it's similar to here. In fact, we could use the same formula and have it look to pull everything that occurs after a comma. So let me show you a good example of sort of modifying a formula here. So here we have the formula copied from the cell. Now there's a couple of things we want to do. One, we're not looking in B2 anymore, right? We're really looking for for A24. Let's make that first. Let's replace all. Cool. Now that we've done that, we're not necessarily looking for the at. We're actually looking for it to find a comma. So I'm going to replace that, and I'm going to do the same thing over here. It has it twice. And I'm going to copy that formula here. And, I'm sorry, I screwed up. We're really looking for A18, right? So we're not looking for A24. We're looking for A18 right here. Let's replace that real quick. Copy that and paste that right over here. And it's essentially doing the same thing, right? One way we're looking to get everything after the at. The other way we're looking to get everything after the comma. Here is an interesting example here. So you have a bunch of words. They're separated by spaces or whatever the case is. You just want that last word. So we're going to use this formula right here. And essentially what it does, it starts at the right and it finds the first space. And that's all it copies. So everything from the right to the first space. And we want it in A31. So we're just going to quickly modify this right here. Make sure we get that character out of there. We're going to tell it, instead of A2, give everything in A31. Trim the formula up. Paste it right over here. And you see what we have is we've isolated, in this case, the state. Now, obviously, if that was any word right there, if that was an email address, if that was a name of a company, all it needs to do is start from the right, hit whatever you want, and then hit a space. And that space, represented by these quotes right over here, is what it's going to capture for you. So first in a list, right? This actually came out of a recent example where I was scraping some data off LinkedIn, and it was pulling multiple email addresses. Some people list 3 or 4, and it was too much for me to go through everyone by piecemeal, and I just wanted it to say, go look through all of them and take the first one. If it has a comma, take whatever falls before the comma. If it doesn't have a comma, then it's only one email address in a cell, and I want it to take just that one over here, just that one cell. So this formula is what comes into place, and essentially what this does is it says, can we find a comma? If so, take everything before that comma. If not, just take that cell completely. And when I paste it into here, this is what I get. When I copy it down, you'll see that it's done its job. Here, it has 3 email addresses, only taken the first. Here, it only has 1, so it's going to take just that cell. And here, it has 2, and it's taken the first 1. So really valuable there. Now, this last example is going to be really technical to explain to you guys, but I'm going to try to do it. It actually comes from the bottom of the sheet. I included 2 VBA formulas. I needed a way to use regular expression or regex to pull out any phone number or in another case, email, but we're going to do phone number here from a cell that contains a lot of things. And as you see, some reason this particular scrape that I was doing was trying to pull the phone number, but it was actually pulling any sort of number combination. So as you see here, it was pulling, it looks like these are classes this person took, right, in college. Marketing 321, economics 383. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, but as you see, there is a phone number that falls in the bottom of there. What made this particularly difficult for me is that phone number didn't always occur at the end. Sometimes that phone number was in the middle. Sometimes that phone number was in the beginning. There was all different examples of this, and most of the ones I've copied are actually showing at the end. But let's spice it up a little bit just to prove a point here. I'm going to paste this somewhere in the middle here. And I needed a way to go through all this and for it to say, is there a cell phone number? If so, copy it out. If not, do nothing. And I couldn't find a cell phone formula to do it, but I did find a little bit of code that allowed me to use regex or regular expression. So I'm going to copy this code for a second, and I might lose some of you guys here, but try to stay with me. The first thing you need to do is insert this code into your document. You do that through the developer tab. Now, if you don't see a developer tab, you're going to have to enable it by going to File, Options, go to the quick access, the custom ribbon. Got to remember how I did this a long time ago, and make sure that developer tab is checked. It might look like that. You might have to check it, then hit OK, and it'll appear. So what I'm going to do is go into Visual Basic. I'm going to insert a module, and I'm just going to paste this module right here, and that's all I need to do. And I actually have this, and then I could just X out of the screen. There's no save, there's no execute, and I'm just going to actually, hopefully I don't screw it up because I already have this module in here, but I'm going to delete it. Okay, so here it is. I just cut and pasted it there, and I'm just Xing out of here. And that creates a new formula, and that new formula is actually called get phone number, right? And it's really simple. Get phone number, and you put where you want to get the phone number. In this case, it's A42, and hit enter. And look, it's pulled that phone number out of here. And I could simply drag this down to all the cells, and it's actually going to pull those phone numbers out of here, and ignores everything else. So whether or not that's useful for you, maybe you scraped an entire search results, and each row has all this text in it, and you just want to pull out the phone number, or there's one that will allow you to do the email address. Very useful, and I can now save my document, and I have all this information in here. So I hope that helps. Hope you could pause this, go through it again. Feel free to send me any comments, any questions. If you have some data and you're trying to build some sort of an Excel formula, I could probably help you out with that. Again, I'm not an Excel expert. I'm not a programmer by any stretch of the imagination, but I've sort of figured it out through an absolute need, in the trenches, bullets flying, those sort of things. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please share it, write a comment, and check out my channel where I have a few other videos on different scraping and data in programs that I think are really helpful for the recruiting, sourcing, and sales community. Thank you, guys.